Matthews. I am the statewide steering committee chair for the Texas Rainbow Push Coalition under the leadership of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are here today because there has been a miscarriage of civil rights. There has also been a miscarriage of child's rights and human rights. We are here because accountability must be had for the atrocity that has happened amongst our children in the state of Texas. We are constantly dealing with systemic racism that happens with our minority providers who actually cares for the children of the state of Texas. I mean, to the point where you have minority providers that are being put on probation by HHSC residential child care licensing without having due process of completing admin reviews. Who does that? That is unacceptable. Then we have providers that are not being evenly regulated across the state, just like the situation that happened at the refuge. Now, if you had a minority provider that you're overly regulating, like you do in Harris County, where we're from, then you turn around and you miss the mark where children were actually being trafficked or an actual P1 investigation and no one shows up. But if that was to happen to a minority provider that looks like me, then you would have the whole guard there, the facility would have been closed, and all of the children would have been removed, and everyone would have been indicted. Where is the accountability? Where's the accountability for our children? Where's the accountability that they deserve? We have people that are here today who have lost family members by the hands of CPS. We have family members that have actually been on the other side as a child in CPS custody that was actually molested several times and no one helped them. Then we have the same child that was molested while in CPS custody. Now her children has been removed from her, and CPS forced her hand to sign over her rights. What type of agency is this? This is unacceptable, it's inhumane, and accountability must be had. So what I would like to do today is I want to introduce Ms. Mykesha Bridgewater. And just to give you all a brief history, Ms. Bridgewater was brought to me by a now city council member in Houston. Ms. Bridgewater's grandchild died by the hands of CPS. She was retaliated against by CPS for trying to speak up. That's why she was brought to me. And now she has the siblings of the grandkids. But the retaliation doesn't stop. So I want her to tell her story because this needs to be amplified. I am bringing the accountability, the hammer of accountability. Because if we don't stand for our children in the state of Texas, then we're going to fall for anything. Our children is our future. And if we do not stand in the gap for them, then who are we to judge? So, Ms. Bridgewater, come on up.
Some of the things that I will show is not nice, so I want everybody to, guard your heart. I'm gonna give you a little briefness of what was going on with my grandchildren, and they were being beat on, they were being abused by the alleged boyfriend on I constantly told CPS several occasions. They were in my home. They've had records. They got over 150 phone calls from Texas children to things that just was outstanding. I was on the news. I went to KVUE. I brought my story constantly asking them to assist us. They would not assist me with my granddaughter. At no appointed time would they assist me with my granddaughter. They would not assist me. They would not. Her arm was broken. chest cavity beaten in. You understand me? A little girl, a 3-year-old little girl, constantly being warned by them, from daycares to dentist's office to school records, when I constantly bring in the pictures, the severeness of the burns, the broke, and nobody has yet been called and arrested about it, but they drag me through the mud, where we lose our home, where we lost our grandkids that also was still under severe therapy. No funding, no help, no anything, until we came in contact with Dr. Matthews, and she began to help us to receive the other children that still are deeply damaged. And there's no help from CPS. There's no help from your county. There's no help. But you say, speak up when you see wrong. You told me to say something if I wanted them to be saved. And I asked that. Did you save them? Did you save her? Did you save her? And then you gave her to the accomplice family that were under charges. They were under charges. Charges. Theft, abuse, molestation. But is this in the records? No, it's not. No, it's not. But I was the devil, because I wanted to bring forth light of a little 3-year-old that lost her life because nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to listen. Now you got 2 other kids that need severe and help, and nobody's listening. Nobody's helping. It took Dr. Matthews to ruffle the feathers. Still there's no help. She's only one person. When are we going to stand up for these kids? When are we going to stop and support what's right? I was down there every day at the courthouse, every single day, and I got looked over. I got looked over until Dr. Matthews. I got looked over because I spoke up. I spoke up. They lied on me. They said I was under investigation. I was not. Detective Spivey sent the letter to Dr. Matthews and them and agreed and told them that that was a lie. They told me my husband couldn't stay at the house. He was homeless. That was a lie. But yet they did all these things and got us to where the point that it's hard to survive, because we cared enough to speak up and not sit back and let it happen. But I was blamed for speaking up. I was supposed to be quiet. They picked the wrong mother. They picked the wrong grandmother.
That's right.
Because I don't care where I got to go, until I'm in the dirt, somebody gonna be held accountable. She was 3 years old, and she was beaten and sexually assaulted. That is a shame. We need to stand behind what's right and help people and not try to shut us up. Because I want to save my children. Well, they met the wrong one, because I'm here to speak. And I'm here to protest it. And I'm here to bring the heat. And I stand behind her with the hammer. So, it's time to get ready. Y'all need to stand behind these children. They're dying because you're quiet. Open your mouth. Stand up. Rise up for them. Because that's what I'm getting ready to do. I haven't stopped yet. And I won't stop until CPS is held accountable.
Could you say your first and last name?
Mykesha Bridgewater. Mykesha, M-I-K-I-S-H-A. Bridgewater, B-R-I-D-G-E-W-A-T-E-R.
And you are the grandmother?
I am the maternal, yes. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Bridgewater. So, I'm bringing real stories that they don't want you to hear. I'm bringing real live people who have been mistreated by the system, ignored, families lost. I'm bringing them for you to join this fight with me on this battlefield and amplify this. Because Ms. Bridgewater did not deserve for her granddaughter to lose her life by the hands of CPS. She did not. Baby did not deserve to lose her life because somebody failed to do their job. It is CPS and residential child care licensing job to protect the children in Texas. But instead, you have retaliatory practices that they both use. You had licensing reps coming into this woman's house, making up deficiencies. You have CPS caseworkers going to this woman's house, creating havoc, lies, going to family court, lying on this mother, all because she wanted accountability and she wanted the right thing done. I'm letting you know now, CPS and residential child care licensing, the hammer of accountability is here. The act of tyranny that you have bestowed upon our families in the state of Texas is over. Rights organizations has joined together. I'm going to say this again. All the civil rights organizations have joined together. And this is just the beginning, because the age of tyranny on our families and on our children is over. So now I would like to bring up one of the former foster youths that was molested while in CPS custody. And she told them, as well as licensing reps, and nothing happened. So let me have you tell her story. Sarah Alonzo.
Hello. Yes, I was touched in a foster home, and I would tell my foster parents, and they didn't believe me. And I just feel like they need to look into more giving people being able to be foster parents, because they abuse you, they sexually touch you, and when you try to speak on them about what they do, they end up believing them and not investigating more on what happens. And also with my sister, with her situation, they took her kids away due to domestic violence, and then they kept telling her that she wouldn't get her kids back and that she needed to sign her rights over. And then I tried to get her kids, and they told me that I was too young, that they didn't feel like I can take care of my sister's kids, which are my nephews and my nieces, which I feel like anybody should be able to have their family in their household. But except this was Montgomery County, and everyone says that the judge that my sister has never gives nobody the rights back to their parents. And this was her first case due to domestic violence, which was nothing to do with the kids, it was with the father. So I just feel like it was unfair for what they did to her.
Ma'am, when were you in the system?
I was in the system for 11 years.
Could you give us a year range? Like
Probably 2007,
this when you started in the
yes,
system?
and moved foster homes and foster homes.
And was it in the city, county that you're speaking of?
No, it was in Harris County.
Harris County. And you spoke up when this,
Yeah, I spoke up and they didn't believe me.
how old were you when that happened?
Probably 8. And I was just moved around, I guess, because they can saying that I was just bad and not believing me.
What is your concern today?
That for the kids that are in the system, don't be afraid to open up and tell the truth. Just keep speaking. Don't be afraid, because some of them do get hurt in the system. They take them from their family and they put them in a worse situation. So if you are in the system, do not be afraid. Speak up, because if you don't, then nobody will.
Did it help you by speaking?
Mommy, no, but now that I have my kids, I would never allow them to be in the system, because I don't want them to go through anything that I've been through. And it hurts me that my sister's kids got taken away, and I don't want them to ever go through none of that. But I will still fight to see them one day.
Thank you, Sarah. So, we are at a crossroads at this point. We are at a defining moment where something has to happen. We need an independent investigation for both CPS and the Human Health Services Commission, the Residential Child Care Licensing Division. The state of Texas needs to pay for this. We also need for our legislators to get back in with another special session. And we need comprehensive legislation. We need accountability. We need extra funding so CPS workers that are understaffed but overworked, they need to be compensated appropriately. Because what we're having now, even with the federal court case with Judge Janice Jack, we have providers that are on heightened monitoring that CPS and residential child care licensing are claiming that they meet the threshold. But you know what they're doing? They're going in tampering with compliance history of minority providers. I have the proof to substantiate for them to be on heightened monitoring. Then when I brought it to their attention, then they turn around and say, okay, well, we're gonna put providers on probation. So how can you put a provider who can actually have a bed for a child and provide the services needed for a child, and you're putting them on probation, and then you don't even give the provider due process with the administrative review, which is part of the Texas Code. That is law. It does not say, okay, well, we can't complete all of the admin reviews, so we're just going to put you on probation and we'll take you off if all of your stuff gets overturned. That's not how that works. That's not what the law says, but this is what's happening. You have kids that want to speak out to what's happening to them, being abused, being trafficked, just like what happened at the refuge. What did the governor do? Try to sweep it under the rug. And so you have the director of the Texas Rangers saying that no abuse happened there. So where did you get your T-close training, sir? Because last I checked, if you're taking pictures and you're selling it, and then you're getting alcohol and drugs, what do we call that? Human trafficking, correct? So again, let me bring up one more young lady, which is Sarah Alonzo's sister, Gloria, and I want her to explain what happened to her. Come on up, Gloria.
Hello, my name is Gloria Alonso. I had a CPS case over domestic violence, and I did everything what CPS asked me to do, and they were bringing more stuff to me to do, and they told me that if I don't sign my rights, that I won't get my kids back and won't see them anymore. So.
Gloria, when did this happen?
Last year.
Last year. And how many children do you have?
3.
I got a glimpse of that there was abuse, but it was not by your hand. It was
No.
by your boyfriend?
My
husband?
boyfriend.
Can you elaborate on how that progressed from it being reported to you signing over your rights? Can you elaborate on the progression of that?
Give her the timeline.
For like 3 months.
No, what she's asking is like, can you tell her like, how did it start and how did it end? That's what she wants.
Yeah. Can you kind of go into that?
I pressed charges at him, and he went to jail for 6 months. And I had a CPS case where he went to jail. And they told me that when he put his hands on me, they told me that if he leaves the house, that my kids won't get taken away. So he left the house, and I told the caseworker that he left the house. And then they told me, oh, well, I never said that. He can stay there. So the next day, they came and took my kids away.
And then after they took your kids away, what?
I did all the classes they told me to do. I got a job and everything, and then told me that I won't get my kids back because they feel like they're gonna be in danger for my kid's father.
But you're the one that turned in the father.
Yes, I did. So I don't get it. I don't get why they took my kids away.
And the father's in prison.
He's gonna be in prison for 2 years. So
What do you think needs to happen when it comes to a situation like this? Does there need to be somebody that helps you? What would have helped you through this? Is there anybody that could have helped?
yeah, I have my sister, my mom, my other sister. I have people that can help me.
But it sounds like your sister tried to help you with your children.
Yeah.
How did
And
that-
they said that she was too young to get my kids, and it was gonna be too much for her. So they didn't want, like, basically they don't want family to adopt my kids.
So where are your kids right now?
They're in CPS right now.
With like a foster family or at a
Yeah, foster family for right now, until they get adopted. So, and I did everything what they asked me to do, and I don't get why they still took my kids. I never abused my kids, never.
What about today? Your sister looks like she's at least 21 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't she apply to get those children back for you? Do you know?
No.
FASA said it was fine, but CPS was no. They
It was
wanted them
no.
to be adopted by other people.
Okay, so, is there anything else you wanna say?
Yeah, is there anything else you want to add about this? That
I
somebody hearing this,
I just think it's not fair because I did everything when they asked me to. So I don't get why they still took. I did press charges on him too.
charges still pending?
Yeah.
He's in prison.
Yeah, he's in prison right now.
Do you think if you had had like a high-priced attorney,
I had an
and you
attorney.
had support like that, would it have even helped?
I had an attorney too, but they told me that it was 100%. I won't get my kids back.
You have an attorney still.
Huh?
You have an attorney still.
No.
No.
I'm just waiting for them to get adopted.
So you don't have an attorney. You're not motioning to try to get the kids back in court.
They told me I have to sign my rights. If I don't, then I won't able to see my kids ever again. So
CPS told you that in
yes,
writing, or
CPS.
Did they say it in an email or did someone tell you that?
No, they told me.
Who was it? A caseworker?
It was the caseworker and CPS, and they were saying I was too young to get them back to. That was gonna be too much for me.
How old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
Do you get to visit your children?
Yes, I had a visit last week and one on next week, and that's it. And that's the last visit I will have.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What did you say?
I had a visit last week, and I will have one more visit next week, and that'll be the last one.
Why are they saying that? They're still your children.
Because I have signed my rights, because they told me that if I don't sign my rights, that I won't be able to see them.
So was there a hearing or was that avoided because you signed your
No, they had talked to me, and they explained to me.
So the kids have an ad litem, or has that all been avoided?
No, that's it.
Wow. Is there anything else, Gloria? Okay. So, thank you for sharing your story, Gloria. So now we have an agency robbing people children from them. Where they do that at? So now you're taking people's children, you're intimidating them to sign their rights over and then lying to them, saying if you sign your rights over, then you'll be able to see your kids. But clearly, in the CPS realm, if you sign your rights over, you will not see your kids again because your children are going to be up for adoption. Now, this is a practice that's happening. I wonder who else that this has happened to. This is unacceptable. So so CPS and residential child care licensing supposed to be designed to protect our most vulnerable, not to re-victimize, not to extort families. You might as well run a whole human trafficking ring because that's exactly what you just did. You're trafficking children so they can be adopted, because you do know CPS them get a nice little stipend when you have families that are adopted, right? Yeah. So isn't this bizarre? Isn't this disheartening? You're not supposed to break families. When a family has an issue, that's what the classes are for, so they can be better parents to their children. Don't have them to go in and do classes and then you strong arm them to sign documents to remove their rights from their kids. And then this is a parent who was a child in CPS who was molested as a kid. So this is an ongoing deal. This has to stop, people. And those of you that are watching this, any pro bono attorneys, I need you guys to step up and help these families because they are getting hammered. And this is not right. I would like to also bring up Mr. Robert Williams, because what I said earlier, civil rights organizations, we are joining together. So I would like for Mr. Williams with NAACP Brazoria to give a remark. Mr. Robert Williams.
Thank you, Candace. My name is Robert Williams, Criminal Justice Chair, Brazoria County. We have heard some very disheartening stories today. We have heard individuals who are somewhat afraid to speak up because of language barriers. We have heard from parents who will indeed speak up. But in all of the situations we've heard, there's one constant. And that is, this system is dysfunctional. The system itself is dysfunctional. Now, years ago, I actually worked in one of these facilities. And one thing that I can tell you, these children talk. They don't talk. There's nothing that's going to happen that's not going to come to the surface. But in the case of Gloria, they didn't want to listen. What about the children up at Bastrop? 70 days, still locked in this facility, where the reports have already been given that they've been sex trafficked. Why are we here today? Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about our children, right? Ukraine has sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Yes, there are children dying in Ukraine, but there are children dying right here. In government custody. And nobody's talking about it. So we're trying to bring it to light. Not only bring it to light, we are also looking for solutions. We're in contact with some of our representatives. That is why we are here in the Capitol today, where protective policy and legislation is supposed to take place. Right? And so you will be hearing calls to actions from us leading up to our next session. We know the governor has his priority issues. We know the other side has their priority issues. But this is not a political issue. This isn't left or right. This is right versus wrong. It's your children. And so when you hear the alarm being rung, when you hear the call to action for you to show up here at the Capitol, for you to call your representatives, we ask that you join us. We ask that you lift our children up so that we can save future children from not dying in this government system.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. So, and I close with this. The hammer of accountability is here. And I want you to hear me real good and make sure you get it, because I want you to see, because we are not going to stop. We are going to keep going. Good trouble is going to continue to happen. I'm just going to say this again. CPS, residential child care licensing, the hammer of accountability is here. The age of tyranny to Texas families is over. And I don't care if I got to come and clean everybody's office out to get you from damaging our children. I will not stop. I will not rest. Because one thing about it, God put us in charge to look after these children. He put us in charge. That's right. So that means by any means necessary, we are going to do what needs to be done to protect the children in our state and across this nation. So just know, this is not the last press conference. This is going national. So CPS and residential child care licensing, the hammer has spoken. This press conference is over. Any questions?
I have a few, ma'am. Okay, so my first question for you, many of the deaths listed in the DFPS report are attributed to pre-existing medical conditions or abuse suffered before children entered the system. Do you think that there is more DFPS should be doing to prevent these kinds of deaths after children are in their care?
Absolutely. Because that's part of them doing their job. And that's not what they're doing. And I go back to this again. Because what they're doing, they're over-regulating minority families, minority providers who can provide services for these families, who are trained to provide services. Because check this out. You have children that are in CWAP. You have CPS caseworkers that are there with children in CWAP that are not even trained in restraints. That's not even trained in psychotropic medication. So therefore, and you know why the reason that the children are in CWAP? Is because you are not regulating the providers fairly across the board. So therefore, the providers don't want to risk their business because they're not being supported. And who fails in the end? The children.
I have a quick follow. The CPS system in Texas have been in this ongoing legal federal lawsuit over the treatment of children in the system, for years. Any thoughts on how that lawsuit comes into play here?
Well, basically, that lawsuit is coming into play because it's showing that CPS and residential child care licenses are not doing their job with protecting the children of Texas. And federal judge Janice Jack, every hearing, she makes it real clear that you're not doing your job because look what's happening. They even had an emergency hearing based on what happened at the refuge. And it was no way possible that children were supposed to be in that facility for 70 days with a P1 allegation. And a P1 allegation is a priority one, which means with a P1 allegation, you're supposed to have 2 representatives supposed to come to that facility within 24 hours. You're supposed to have an investigator from residential child care licensing to investigate the child rights, and you're supposed to have an investigator from CPS for abuse and neglect. And none of that happened. None of it happened. Because you know why? She was the right skin color. Because if that would have happened to a provider that looks like B or these individuals here, all those children would have been removed that night. The facility would have been closed, would have been indicted. Why we have kids in the facility being re-victimized? Acceptable. And you're not going to that because it makes us to where we agree with this behavior. Don't agree with it. Because if you're supposed to regulate us, why are you not following your own regulations? Any other questions?
I know that I keep jumping in.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I just want you to expand on your concerns that you have about the treatment of minority providers.
The concerns that I have is the systemic racism that's happening in plain sight. You have minority providers. When Judge Janice Jack brought the ruling down for CPS to come up with height monitoring. Height monitoring is supposed to be designed for providers that are doing very, very bad, within their program, but supposed to have measures in place so they can excel and try to have everything on point to be able to take kids. Well, clearly what's happening, you have residential child care licensing and CPS going in tampering with minority providers' compliance history, and I have proof.
What proof do you have?
From, put it this way, I'll send it to you, because I have it. And this one provider had their compliance history for the last 10 years. So if they requesting a compliance history from the department, it's supposed to match, correct? It didn't match. They had high deficiencies and everything to try to substantiate that this provider is supposed to be on height monitoring. And they've done it to several.
Why does the department want more placements on height monitoring when that gives them less capacity?
And that's a good question. Because clearly, what they're trying to do, they're trying to show Judge Janice Jack that they're actually trying to do something. And they're trying to throw providers under the bus because they're the one that's negligent, not the providers. That's the strategy. And I found that out in the last legislative session when I came to speak with legislators. Because when I came to speak with the legislator, Senator Cohirsch, she was going to do a bill during the 85th, the legislative session prior to that, which was Senate Bill, I forgot the name of the bill. But anyway, it was supposed to be like if children run away 3 times, they would close the facility. And so when I got word of it, I came in and spoke directly with her and her team and brought other providers for her to be able to talk to who are actually the boots on the ground, minority providers. And then that's when she took a different turn to not pass that rule. But as far as with minority providers, they are being treated, for instance, you're putting providers on probation. Now, this residential child care licensing. You're putting providers on probation, and you're not giving them their due process with the administrative reviews. And let me explain that process to you. So let's say you have residential child care licensing come into your facility, or they come into your agency. And they come in to go through your records to do their audits or investigations or something of that sort. And then if you have a deficiency that they give you, you are granted within 10 days to say that you want to do an administrative review to challenge the deficiency. And then once you go through that process, and normally what a lot of providers do, they have an attorney that does the administrative reviews for them. But then with that process, after that, it either is overturned or it's upheld, okay? So what has happened, residential child care licensing have been backed up with administrative reviews because of the manpower, the high turnover rates. So what they decided to do to majority minority providers, putting them on probation without having admin's reviews completed. How can you do that? And I got proof of that too. and I'll send it to you. So all of this needs to come to light. We have, even with CPS, with minority families and providers, you turn around with investigations. You'll turn around and investigate her and go through the village, go through everything with her, but then you get someone of a different skin tone, it's closed. And I'm gonna give you a prime example. These young ladies come out of Montgomery County. We have video of a counselor in Montgomery County who abused the child at school, like dragging the kid like a rag doll, but you didn't see no abuse. You have this young lady here who had a domestic dispute with her boyfriend. The children wasn't even touched, and you took her kids, the same county. So that's what I mean by systemic racism across the board. Are there any other questions? Thank you, and this concludes our press conference. Now, we are going to the CARP meeting, which is at 11 o'clock, over there off North Lamar. And this is where providers, I sit on that committee. So it's like providers, there's all of us that talks about residential best practices. I hope to see y'all there, because I'm gonna do, you know, I got some questions. Thank y'all so much.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jayla Washington.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Do you have a card on you, by the way?
No, I can give you my information.
Is it in the email? Is your
It's in
contact in the email?
Yes, it's in the press release.
Oh, fantastic. Love the hat, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much.